SwayBods reminds me of a simpler time of gaming, back to the early days of Popcap games actually, when mobile aesthetics were not dirty words to say, and clean design was paramount. You could take a game with one single mechanic and really explore it deeply, and that would be considered a good thing. And SwayBods is a breath of fresh air by going back in time to that era. In SwayBods you play with these bubble monsters that all want to sway on their own trajectory and arcs. When you click on them, they'll start swaying like metronomes, and the idea for each level is to turn all of the monsters on by swaying them around so that they don't hit each other, because if two bubble monsters collide, the bubbles will pop and you'll need to restart the level again. Largely you can do this at your own time and pace, but there are timed levels where if you take too long, a spiked monster will drop in and pop some of those bubble monsters for you, meaning you need to restart. There's also an optional 3-star mechanic that goes on too, which asks you to turn on the sway of certain monsters in specific orders to collect stars, but often that means that you're having to react quite quickly so that things don't collide. Outside of that though, it's really up to you how you do things, and the beauty of SwayBods is the simplicity of its design. You look at the different monsters, different coloured monsters will move at different speeds, which means that some of them will stay in the firing line of others more than others, and some monsters will be flying really quickly, and so you'll need to make sure that you perhaps slightly off-time certain moves of monsters so that they just breeze past each other without colliding. And that's part of the fun, is that sometimes you're going squeaky bum time hoping that you just miss out on certain moves, but largely you can almost metronome things in your brain going tick tock and knowing exactly when to press the button so that everything aligns. And if you get into that mentality, SwayBods has 100 levels for you to explore, various different time signatures, making sure that things sway together left to right, or maybe they spin around like they're turning in a central axis. Different levels require different brain thoughts, and one of the key things here is that everything always sways clockwise first, and that's usually what used to cause me problems, because I'd forget that something might sway upwards rather than to the right. So yeah, you just need to pay attention to that. But this is a really well designed, simple game that does what it says on the tin and does it exceptionally well. If you do get stuck, there are some power-ups that can help you out. One of them slows down a monster so that they move at half speed, and that can be very helpful if you're struggling to get things nicely aligned. There is some level skip passes that you can do too. And there's also ones where you can make the bubble around the monster harder so that it can kind of bash through and not get hurt on the first hit. And these can all be very helpful to just try and get you over some levels that perhaps you might get stuck on. But I didn't necessarily need that very often. And indeed, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I used those power-ups, but always came back to then sort out the levels later on. This is casual gaming personified. It's simple, it's quick, it's easy to understand, it's intuitive because you're just clicking on monsters and watching them roll. And yeah, thumbs up from me, pleasantly surprised, and I stayed with this game much longer than I initially thought I would. So yeah, pleasant surprise, SwayBods, out on the 22nd of August. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.